So the next thing we want to look at is input. So far, anything that you've kind of played with a variable has been writing a variable in your program, hard coding some values, and printing them out. But we want a way so that we can actually interact with a user behind a keyboard, so that we can test out our code with a bunch of different numbers or values and play with them. So we're going to do that with something called a scanner. So the way we get a scanner is that we type scanner, and you see that we get a suggestion from VS Code pop up. We have this scanner that lives in the Java util package. You can just press enter, or you can click on it, and you should notice here at the top you get an import for Java util scanner. And so I'm gonna finish out this line of code briefly. Scanner equal new scanner System.in. Okay, so Java's okay with that. Now if I deleted this line, let's say for some reason I messed up and didn't have this import. Okay, scanner appears in red on both of these. Now I can fix that by putting in import Java util dot scanner, and everything's okay. But let's say I didn't remember where it lived. I could come down here, I can click on scanner, I get this little yellow light bulb. I can click on it, and it will give me some suggestions. And I say, okay, I wanted to import from Java util. Unfortunately, there's also this scanner in this other package. A good rule of thumb is, if you don't know, go with the simpler package. So this is the simpler package, and that's the one I want. The next thing you'll notice is that the scanner's in yellow under here, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is this resource leak scanner warning. The way you can fix that is at the very end of your program. You can just have a line here that just says scanner.close, and that gets rid of your warnings here. Just remember that this has to be the last thing in the main method, otherwise you'll prematurely stop being able to use your scanner. There's a couple of things I want to point out here, because scanner is a little bit different than the number variables we've been using. And this kind of hints at something called object-oriented programming. In Java, there are these things called objects, and we're not going to get too deep into the weeds of this right now, but it is good to kind of see it. Scanner is an object. Ints and doubles and booleans and strings, well, not strings, ints and doubles and booleans are all primitive types. They're very simple variables. But things like strings and scanner are objects. Most objects, strings a little bit less so, but other objects definitely, we create by using this new and then the name of the object syntax. So if you ever see the word new, that should kind of be a little trigger in your head that, oh wait, that probably means an object. Not all objects are going to be created with the word new all the time, but if you see the word new, it's definitely an indication, hey, there's an object here. So new scanner, and we're just going to pass in this variable called System.in. And close, you notice how we have the syntax, we have scanner dot. We haven't been using a dot after the variables we've been using so far, our numbers and our booleans. This is something that we see with objects, and close is a method, which is a word we've heard before, or a function on the scanner. That's about as much as we're going to say about that right now, and that's about as much as we need to worry about right now. But just know that everything we're seeing right here, this is just another variable, but all of this stuff around it, this new and this dot close, these are hints towards object-oriented programming and object-oriented design and principles of objects. So this is us using an object, even though we haven't really seen objects much up to this point. So that's kind of how we create the scanner, and that's how we close the scanner. So let's look at using the scanner. The most common way you'll use scanner is you'll have some output statements. So we'll say we'll do an output statement. We will get a value, and then we will output some result. So there's 3 basic steps here after we've created it. So step 1 is an output statement. So let's say we wanted to ask the user for their age. We can say enter your age. So this line, and if I just run this program, okay, enter your age, and then the program finishes. The next step is to get a value, and this is where the scanner comes in. And we want to store this value in a variable. Now, I know that I'm asking for an age, so we're going to store it as an integer called age gets scanner.nextInt. And so this line is kind of where all the inner workings kind of happens. We're saying, hey, scanner, ask the user, wait for the user's input. Take whatever the user gives you, treat it like an integer, and stick it in this variable. So if I run this code, okay, it asks me for my age, but notice it's not doing anything else. It is waiting for me to type something in. So I'll type in a number, let's say 30. And then the program exits, but it did not exit until after I provided input. So your second step is to get this value. Now I can run this again, and I can enter a different age. I could say 31, program finishes. One thing I can't do though, notice it says next int. If I type a number like 29.7, okay, that is very clearly not an int. I press enter, and we get all this. Whenever you see this word exception, that's a kind of a red flag to say that is an error. So Java encountered an error here, and the program actually crashed. And it crashed because it's expecting an integer, but we gave it a decimal number, so a floating point or a double. I can run this again, and I can say definitely not a number, and it crashes again. There are ways to prevent a crash from when this happens, but that's something that we'll probably see much later. This is kind of an expected crash for us right now. So we're going to assume the user is entering numbers correctly. Okay, and the last step for right now is we're going to output the result. So we can just System.out.println age. I can run the program again. Enter your age, 31, and then it printed 31. So in this line, I typed in 31. In this line, we printed out 31. Okay. And so that's how you use the scanner. And that's pretty much all there is to it. But we're gonna look at some more things we can do with both scanner and print. For example, I've got this println here. We've seen before that there's also a method called print that doesn't give you a new line. So I'm going to just delete the ln here and see what I get. Okay, I'm entering my age right here on the same line, and then outputs the result. So that's pretty cool. I think that looks a little bit cleaner. The problem is we have this this colon followed immediately by me typing in my age. But I can fix that by putting a space after the colon and running it again. And notice what I'm doing is every time I make a little change, I'm running my program again. And when you're first starting out or when you're playing with something that you don't have a lot of experience with, that's a really good practice, is every time you change something, run the code again and see if it behaves like you want it to. So now, see how much better that looks? So that looks like the computer's actually asking me for something and me responding to it on one line. And then I get 31. Okay, so that's interesting. So that's a little bit you can do with your input, and really your output statement is saying ask for some input, because if the user doesn't know that you're waiting, that it's waiting on you to give you some information, then it's going to be hard for the user to use your program. Okay, so in your second step, we're going to say that you're going to retrieve the data. Okay, in this case, we're getting the age, which is an int, no problem. And then in 3, we're going to say we're going to output something. And right now, we're just outputting the age. So maybe I could add some text here and say System.out.println and say, you said your age is, okay, need my semicolon, and I'll run that. Enter your age, 31. You said your age is 31. Now that's nice, but maybe I want it all on one line. Well, I can get rid of this println and put a space in here. If I run my code, I get the same result. But I can actually do this with one line. And so this is something else we can do with println. We can actually use strings and variables in one go. You said your age is plus age. Now be very careful with this plus. This is not an addition plus. This is what's called concatenation. And we'll probably see this more when we look at strings more deeply. But we can combine strings with integers or with other numbers. So I'm going to run this code. My age, 31. You said your age is 31. So something else we can do is we can operate on the data. So we can say my age is my age, and then I can say, okay, what if I want to know what is my age in 5 years? Well, that's just going to be my age plus 5. Okay, so I can say in 5 years you will be, and then I can say age in 5 years. If I run this, enter your age, so I say 31. In 5 years you will be 36. So you can output information that is different from the information you were given. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. So that's one way we can use this. Another way we can use this is, let's say that we are just asking for their name. Okay. Now, name is definitely not an int. So we need to delete some of this. So I'll delete all this. And now we have something to start with. Name is text, so that's going to be a string. And let's see what the scanner has for us. We have next. We don't have a next string, but we do have a next line. So let's see what that's going to give us. Your name is plus name, and we're going to run this code. Enter your name. My name is Drew. Your name is Drew. Okay, so we've got a few methods we want to get here. So if we want an integer, we need to say scanner.nextInt. If we want a string, we want scanner.nextLine. And I'll be more specifically, we want an int. What if we just wanted a random number? Enter a number. And it could be any number. So we'd probably want a double. So let's see, we got scanner.next. And if we look through this list, this pops up automatically in Visual Studio Code for you. That's really helpful. There's a next double. So we can store that here, and I can say your number is number. Okay, so that all looks good. So let's run that and see what happens. Enter a number, 3.14159. Your number is 3.14159. So if we wanted a double, we would use scanner.next double. And if we're just looking through this list, let's see, we've got next, int, double, byte, float, long, short, big decimal, big integer, Boolean, and then a whole bunch of other methods in here. So this kind of speaks to the object-oriented nature of scanners, that it has all these things it can do. But we are sticking with just a few of the basic ones for right now. This next double, next int, and next float, or sorry, next line are kind of our big three that we're going to be seeing right now. And so this is kind of a good lead-in from what you would have seen in the last video, is you can use this section of code to get a number. So from line 34 down to line 40 here, this is asking the user for input, and then in between you can do any operations on it you want. So you can use all these different operators that we saw before and work on that data. And then after you're done operating on your data, you can print the results. So a good example of this, let's say we wanted to make a calculator, but we wanted a really simple calculator that can only add two numbers together. So we're going to, now let's stick with integers. So we'll say System.out.print, enter an integer, and we'll say int first equals scanner dot next int. Okay, and then we'll do another line. We'll do another set, just copy and paste. And I'll say enter another integer and say second. Okay, so I have both of those, and I can compute the result as first plus second. So now I want to output my result, and I'm going to have to be clever with this. So let's see. So I'm going to say first plus second equals result. Okay, and let's see what it doesn't like. So everything looks good to me. System error, okay. So I got second here, first plus second, second. Oh, I left out a plus. So this is kind of where the string operation with the pluses gets confusing, but notice I can just alternate a variable with some text, variable with some text, and then another variable. And this kind of is something you gotta play around with and see how it works and what you would expect. But notice there's a plus here, there's a plus in some string here, and then there's another plus over here. So let's see. So I created my scanner, and I'll throw in some comments. Get the first number. Then we want to get the second number. We want to compute the result, and we want to output the result. So notice this isn't super complicated. This is exactly the same as above. This is what we've been doing even without scanner. Really, the hardest part of all this is formatting your output, and this is the one that takes the most practice. And this is something you have to get used to. But the more you practice it, the better you'll get with it, and you'll kind of learn what System.out.println likes and doesn't like. So I'm going to run this. And it says to enter an integer. Okay, I expected. I saw that first. So I'll say 7. Okay, it wants me to enter another integer, so I'm down here now. Let's say 8. 7 plus 8 equal 15. And I believe that math is correct. So we have effectively created a calculator. The couple problems with our calculator, it only works for integers right now. But a way we could change that is, okay, instead of integers, I could say a number. Enter another number. Change that to a double. Change that to a double. Say next double. Say next double. And change that to a double. So now I have changed my calculator. I should be able to work with any decimal number. So 3.1 and 4.5 give me 7.6. So that works. What about negative numbers? Let's see if that works. Enter a number. I'm going to say negative 3.1. And I'll say again positive 4.5. And negative 3.1 plus 4.5 is 1.4. And I'm going to run this one more time just to make sure we still work with regular numbers. 3 and 4, okay, makes 7. Now it added the point zeros for us because it's treating them as doubles, but that's fine. Now if I run again though, so integers work, doubles work. Okay, hello does not work because hello is not a number. It's not a double, it's not a float, it's not an integer. So there's no way around that problem right now. We can also only do addition right now, but we could change that up. Maybe I wanted to do multiplication. But if I change it here, I really need to make sure I change it here too, so the output prints what's actually happening. Okay, enter a number. I'll do 7 again, 8 again, and I get 7 times 8 is 56. So I can only really do one operation here, but that's okay. We'll see later that there are some other things in the programming language, Java, that will give us the tools to make this more complicated if we want. But this is how you use the scanner to get input from a user and use it with your operations. So this is creating the scanner, and this is closing the scanner. We have a section of code where we're getting input from the user. We have a section of code where we are operating on that input from the user. And we have a section of code where we are reporting output to the user. So all of this is just building on what we've seen before. The only pieces that are new here really are the scanner, and then a little bit with how we're using print and println. But again, this is something to just kind of practice and play with and see, okay, how do I use print and how do I use println effectively? What can I do to make them different? See if you run into anything that isn't acting the way you expect. And if it's not, then that's something to definitely play with and practice with so you get more comfortable with it.